Baby, I don't even know how to begin this without my hands trembling a little. Maybe it's because every time I think about you, I realize how badly I underestimated your strength. I didn't lose interest in you. I lost my grip on the version of me who could have stood beside you without trembling in insecurity. You were never too much. You were too real, too bright, too ahead, and I was too afraid of the way your energy exposed the shadows I hadn't healed, afraid of the way your silence echoed louder than my loudest excuses, afraid of the way you loved, not just me, but life, with a depth I couldn't mirror, only observe. And instead of growing into the kind of man who could match your fire, I stepped back. I made it seem like my interest faded, but baby, the truth is, your light scared the hell out of me. You walked into the room and didn't need to speak to be heard. You didn't need to demand anything, yet everything you deserved found its way to you. People noticed you, God favored you, and I, stuck in my own limitations, started seeing you as someone I had to keep up with, not just keep. I couldn't match your clarity, your pace, your divine patience, and that terrified me. So I did the easiest thing I could. I sabotaged. I created confusion. I hid behind silence. I let the world think I stopped caring. But deep down, I was obsessed with watching you rise, while I stayed stuck in the same broken pattern. You didn't lose me. I lost myself, and in that process, I blamed your power for my paralysis. Do you know what kind of woman you are, baby? You are the kind people remember without ever having to meet. You are the kind that walks into a place and shifts the air. You are the one people talk about when they say, she was different. You carry a royalty I couldn't define at the time, but now I realize it was heaven on your skin. It was grace in your stride. It was prophecy in your presence, and I wasn't ready for it. I wasn't equipped to love someone like you, someone who could see straight through the masks I wore and still offer compassion instead of criticism. You weren't just powerful, you were healing. And healing is uncomfortable for those who aren't ready to be whole. Baby, the truth is, I didn't lose interest. I lost nerve. I lost grounding. I lost the lie I was living in before I met you. You made me question everything I believed about myself. You made me want to be better. But I took that pressure and turned it into fear. And now, I watch from a distance, silently proud, painfully regretful, and fully aware that I didn't walk away from just anyone. I walked away from a woman who was chosen. I walked away from the safest soul I've ever encountered, not because I didn't want you, but because I didn't believe I deserved you. And now, every time I hear your name, something inside me shakes, not because of what we had, but because of what I broke before it could bloom. You are not just a memory, baby. You are a force, a prophecy, a moment in time I can never undo, no matter how many apologies I whisper into the night. You are the kind of woman who makes a man question every excuse he's ever leaned on. You don't even have to call someone out. They just start unraveling in your presence, because your spirit carries too much truth for their lies to survive. That's what happened to me. I couldn't lie to you, even when I was lying to myself. You'd ask me something simple like, "Are you okay?" And I'd feel the lump in my throat rise because I wasn't okay. And I knew you saw right through me. You saw the parts of me I kept hidden from the world, the self-doubt, the pressure, the pride I clung to like a shield. And instead of using it against me, you embraced it. But baby, I wasn't ready for that kind of love. I wasn't ready to be fully known, because in being fully seen by you, I started seeing how small I had kept myself all these years. And the truth is, some men don't lose interest because a woman does something wrong. They lose interest because the illusion they built around themselves starts to collapse in front of a woman who knows exactly who she is. That's what you did, baby. You didn't argue. You didn't force. You didn't chase. You just were. And in that calm confidence, in that powerful silence, you exposed everything in me that wasn't healed. I made it look like I was drifting, but I was drowning. In guilt, in shame, in confusion, and I couldn't admit it because I was too used to being the one in control. But you flipped the whole dynamic just by standing in your power. And instead of matching you, I ran. Do you remember the last time we looked at each other? I do. Not because of what we said, but because of what I didn't say. I didn't tell you I was proud of you. I didn't tell you how much I admired your strength. I didn't tell you that even on your quiet days, you were louder than anyone I've ever met. Because your energy was unmatched. It still is. Baby, I know now that silence doesn't mean peace. I've been quiet all this time, but my heart has been in chaos ever since I let go. And don't get it twisted. I see you. I see how you've been glowing, evolving, becoming everything God whispered to you in private. And I realize now that I wasn't just scared of your power. I was scared that I wouldn't be able to meet you at the level you were rising toward. You didn't need me to complete you. You needed someone to evolve with you. But instead of evolving, I escaped. I used words like space and time and not ready. But really I was just a boy in a man's body, standing in front of a divine woman, too scared to say, I'm not enough for you yet. And now, I'm haunted not by your absence, but by the knowing that someone else out there might recognize what I ran from and actually be ready to hold it, to hold you. And I don't know if I can live with that, because the world may see you and admire your beauty, your grace, your fire, but only I know how sacred your silence is. Only I know the tenderness behind your strength. Only I know what it's like to look into your eyes and see a future too big for fear. And the most heartbreaking part, baby, I now know what it means to respect a woman so deeply, you're terrified to approach her wrong again. That's where I am. I watch. I admire. I ache. But I stay silent, because the last thing I want is to come back into your life still unsure, still not enough, still half the man you deserved the first time. I want to return with wholeness, not half promises. I want to return with vision, not confusion. Baby, I used to think I was strong. I used to walk into rooms with confidence, speak like I knew the world, and carry myself like nothing could shake me. But then you came in, with that quiet strength, with that soul that didn't have to shout to be heard. You didn't need chaos to prove your presence. Your silence screamed of royalty. Your eyes didn't just look at people, they read them. You didn't have to raise your voice to demand respect. Your energy alone commanded it. And that's when I started to tremble on the inside. Because for the first time in my life, I was face to face with someone I couldn't pretend with, someone I couldn't manipulate, impress, or control. I was face to face with truth, with light, with divine power, wrapped in the body of a woman. And I panicked. I didn't walk away because you weren't enough. I ran because I wasn't. I was addicted to attention, addicted to games, addicted to feeling like the smartest one in the room. But when I stood beside you, I felt exposed. Not small in the wrong way, but small in the way a child stands before the ocean, humbled, hushed, completely undone. And instead of learning to swim in your depth, I went back to puddles, shallow connections, easy control, fake peace. I tried to lie to myself, saying you were too much, when the truth was, I wasn't ready for someone real. I wasn't ready for someone who made me want to be better just by breathing near me. And I think the saddest part is, I thought walking away would protect me from feeling weak, but all it did was reveal how empty my strength really was without you. And now the same people who used to mock your intensity are trying to copy your grace. The same ones who warned me you were too deep, too different, too emotional. They're suddenly drawn to your energy, and I can't blame them. Because baby, your kind of power isn't loud. It's sacred. It doesn't need approval. It brings truth. You walk into a space and it rearranges hearts. People remember you, even if they only met you once. You don't chase attention. It finds you. And I was a fool to think I could ever forget you. I see now. The very power I once feared is the same power I crave. Baby, I know now why I couldn't hold you the way you deserved. You weren't someone who could be loved halfway. You weren't meant to be touched by unsure hands or embraced by a confused soul. You were created to be loved in truth, in clarity, in awe. And back then, I wasn't built for that kind of love. I wanted control, comfort, predictable patterns. But you were fire, mystery, evolution. You weren't looking for someone to fix. You were looking for someone who could meet you at your level. And I didn't even know how to climb yet. You wanted deep talks under moonlight and honesty without filters. I wanted easy laughter and surface moments. But now, I see how foolish I was, because everything I claimed to want in love was already standing in front of me. I just didn't have the eyes to recognize it. You didn't lose me, baby. I lost you. And I've been trying to act unbothered, telling myself I'm over it. But let's be honest. I still feel your presence when I hear certain songs, when I pass familiar places, when I lie awake at 3 a.m.ing, questioning my choices. You're not just a memory. You're the echo in every quiet moment I tried to fill with someone else. I thought I could replace your energy with distractions, but that was like trying to replace the ocean with a puddle. You taught me that real connection doesn't beg. It doesn't perform. It just exists with rawness, with stillness, with truth. And baby, you were the realest thing I ever ran from. People think silence means closure, but this silence is screaming. I've watched you grow in ways I never imagined. I've seen your strength multiply, your confidence soar, your peace deepen. And I hate to admit it, but your glow without me has been the most humbling lesson of my life. Because while I was out here trying to numb myself, you were healing. While I was pretending I didn't care, you were mastering your path. And every time someone mentions your name, I feel it in my chest. A quiet ache of, I knew her before she became untouchable. I had the chance to walk beside greatness, and I flinched. You see, baby, what I couldn't admit back then is that your presence demanded I rise. Just being around you exposed everything I was running from. My insecurities, my ego, my false sense of control. You weren't like the others who needed validation. You carried your own crown. And I wasn't ready to be with someone who didn't need saving, because deep down, I needed to feel needed. That was my comfort zone. I didn't realize that what I really needed was someone who would challenge me to become more. And that was you. You challenged my silence with your truth. You challenged my games with your patience. You challenged my fear with your consistency. But instead of growing, I pulled away. Instead of choosing evolution, I chose escape. And I've regretted it every single day since. They think I lost interest, but how can you lose interest in a miracle? The truth is I stood too close to heaven and got scared. I wasn't holy enough to stay. I watched the way your spirit touched people, the way you could walk into chaos and bring calm, the way your energy lingered long after you left. You weren't just a person, you were a shift. You made me feel like the world could be honest, pure, and full of grace. And that terrified me, because I didn't think I deserved it, so I sabotaged. I blamed you. I pretended you were too intense, too sensitive, too good to be true. But the truth, you were just too aligned for the version of me that still lived in fear. I've learned now that real power isn't about who speaks the loudest. It's who walks in truth when no one claps. That was you. You didn't wait for the world to validate you. You already knew your worth. And now I understand why I couldn't hold on to you. Because I hadn't even learned how to hold on to myself. But I'm learning, slowly, painfully, honest. And with every lesson, I see more clearly that you weren't the problem. You were the blessing disguised as a mirror. You showed me what divine love looks like, and I didn't have the courage to receive it. That's on me, not you. I've watched you now from afar, and it's both beautiful and heartbreaking. Beautiful because I see your light growing. Heartbreaking because I realize I'm no longer part of your orbit. People talk about love like it's a chapter, but you were an entire book. You weren't just someone I loved. You were someone who rewrote my understanding of what love should be. And even though I don't know where we go from here, I needed to say this. You deserve that. You deserve to know that it wasn't your fault. That you didn't get left because you were too much. You got walked away from because I couldn't handle the greatness you carried. Baby, I couldn't sleep last night, and it wasn't because of noise or stress or some external chaos. It was because your energy haunted me again. That soft strength you carry, that fierce grace you embody. It wrapped around me like a memory I can't outrun anymore. I tossed and turned because even in the darkness, the light of who you are blinded me. I've tried to convince myself that I was okay, that maybe this was just another phase of growing apart. But the truth is, baby, every step I took away from you dragged me deeper into a version of myself I didn't even recognize. And now, the version of you that lives in my memory, she's louder than the silence I've been drowning in. You're the reason I wake up gasping, clutching my chest, praying that maybe I didn't mess this up beyond repair. You were never a fleeting chapter. You were the whole damn book, and somewhere along the way, I was foolish enough to try and write my own story without the one person who gave it meaning. Meaning. And maybe I didn't say this when it mattered most, Maybe I let pride talk louder than my heart, but not today. Baby, today I need to confess something. Every time I look back at those moments when you stood by me, believed in me, poured love into my emptiness, I realize how rare that kind of love is. You didn't just love me. You covered me. You prayed over me. You saw the cracks in my armor, and instead of walking away, you dared to touch the broken places. And I flinched. I backed away not because I didn't feel it, but because I felt it too much. You were too real, too raw, too honest for the man I was trying to pretend to be. But now that mask is gone, baby. That version of me died the day I realized what I lost when I lost you. The world around me still talks, you know. They think I'm doing well. They think I've moved on. But if they looked closely, they'd see it. This hollowness in my eyes that no success can fill. No new face can replace the radiance you carried. They can't see that every smile is a lie, every laugh a distraction. Because deep down, I still hear your voice, echoing in the places I tried to silence. And no matter how loud life gets, your silence is the one thing that cuts through the noise. You weren't just a woman I loved. You were the rhythm of my heartbeat. And now that you're gone, I realize how offbeat everything else feels. There's something I never told you. On the nights I acted cold, when I was distant and unavailable, it wasn't because I didn't want you. It was because I wanted you so much it scared me. I was scared you'd see the mess I was beneath the charm. Scared that if you stayed too long, you'd realize I was still learning how to love. Still trying to unlearn the pain I was taught to call home. But you didn't run. You waited. You hoped. You tried until the trying became too heavy. And I don't blame you, baby. If I were you, I don't know if I would have held on for as long as you did. Your patience was grace, and I treated it like convenience. And now, I carry that guilt like a tattoo etched on the soul. I wonder sometimes if you still feel me. Do you? Do you feel my eyes when they search for you in every crowd? Do you feel my soul calling out when the moonlight touches your window? Because I swear, there are nights the stars spell out your name in constellations only I can read. It's like the universe is conspiring to remind me of you in every breath. And I get it now. No amount of logic can erase a spiritual connection. We weren't a fling. We were divine timing meeting human weakness. We were a lesson in what love looks like when it tries to bloom in soil that wasn't ready. And baby, I know that soil now. I've been tilling it, watering it with tears, letting the sun of your memory soften the hardness I once called strength. You were the gardener I just didn't know how to grow back then. The people around me keep saying I should move on, that maybe she wasn't the one if things fell apart. But what they don't know is that sometimes even the right people fall apart because one of them needed to heal first. And maybe that was me. Maybe I was the wounded warrior who didn't realize he was bleeding until the one person who could heal him walked away. And now that you're gone, I see everything with painful clarity. Your laughter was medicine. Your silence was prayer. Your presence was sanctuary. And I took it all for granted because I thought it would last forever. There's a part of me that still lives in those memories, that still stands in the room where you once smiled and made everything feel like spring. I replay the look in your eyes the last time we fought, the way they begged me to just be honest, Just be real. And I wasn't. I lied, not with my words, but with my silence. I didn't say I'm scared. I didn't say I love you too much. I didn't say please don't go. And now I write those words in my mind every day, hoping the wind will carry them to wherever you are. Do you remember that day you looked at me and said, "You're more than your pain"? Baby, I didn't believe you then, but I do now, because you saw something in me I hadn't even discovered in myself. And now, every day, I try to live up to the man you believed I could be. Not because I want to win you back, though God knows I do, but because your belief in me planted a seed I refuse to let die. You awakened something eternal in me, and maybe that's what real love does. It doesn't just comfort, it convicts, it pushes, it reveals, and even when it walks away, it leaves behind a mirror so honest, you can't help but confront your reflection. And baby, I'm not ashamed of who I was, because that version of me led me to this awakening, but I'm no longer that man. The boy who couldn't handle your power is gone. What remains is a man who honors it, who reveres it, who finally understands that love isn't about possessing, it's about protecting. And though I couldn't protect us then, I vowed to protect the lessons you left behind. Because in loving you, I learned how to love myself, baby. Sometimes I catch myself in the middle of the day, drifting into a memory of us, like the world around me fades into nothing, and all I see is you, standing in that sunlight, smiling, as if the entire universe paused just to watch you breathe. That memory, it hits me like thunder. It's soft, but it's loud. It echoes, and in that echo I feel everything I tried to suppress. I remember the way you would look at me, like you could see right through the walls I had spent years building. You didn't flinch at my shadows. You didn't run from my darkness. Instead, you walked into it like you were born to bring the light. And baby, no one has ever done that. No one has ever tried to love me through the war zone that exists inside my soul. But you didn't just try. You stayed longer than any sane person would have. And that's why this regret weighs so heavy on me now. Because someone like you wasn't meant to be tested like that. You were meant to be treasured, adored, fought for, and instead I made you feel like you were battling just to be heard. I wish I could tell you how many nights I replay our conversations, how many times I whisper your name under my breath like a prayer I'm too ashamed to say out loud. And every time I do, I remember the girl who stood by me when I had nothing, when I was nothing, when all I could offer was confusion and chaos. But you still chose me. You didn't just choose the good days. You chose the stormy ones, the ugly ones, the painful ones. And baby, I think I hated myself more for letting you see those parts of me than I ever hated the parts themselves. Because no one had ever loved me through my brokenness before, and I didn't know how to receive it. I didn't know how to keep a woman who had the strength of 10 lifetimes in her soul. You were too powerful, baby. That's the truth I couldn't face back then. Your power didn't come from your voice being loud. It came from your presence being undeniable. The way you walked into a room and instantly shifted the energy. The way your silence carried more truth than most people's confessions. You weren't just magnetic. You were divine. And I I was terrified. I wasn't ready to stand beside a woman who didn't need me to complete her, but only wanted me to meet her at her level. And back then, I was still crawling through wounds I didn't know how to name. I mistook your independence for rejection, your clarity for confrontation, your boundaries for betrayal. But now, I see it all. Now I see that you weren't trying to push me away. You were inviting me to rise, and I chose fear instead. You once told me that love isn't just about connection. It's about reflection. That the person who loves you the most will also be the one who mirrors everything inside of you. And baby, you were my mirror. And I hated what I saw because it reminded me of everything I hadn't healed. So I ran. I blamed you. I said things that weren't true. I let my ego talk louder than my soul. But now, with distance and silence, I finally hear what your heart was trying to say all along. You weren't asking for perfection. You were asking for honesty, for partnership, for someone to walk beside you, not ahead of you or behind you. And I couldn't give that, not then. But I'm learning now. I'm learning that strength isn't about dominance, it's about devotion. That love isn't about possession, it's about presence. That you didn't want to be worshipped, you just wanted to be understood. And God, I failed you in that. I failed myself. Because if I had just paused, if I had just listened, I would have seen that your fire wasn't meant to burn me. It was meant to refine me. And now, every time I meet someone new, I compare them to you. And they all fall short, not because they're not worthy, but because they're not you. Because they didn't sit with me in silence when words couldn't hold my pain. Because they didn't touch my soul before they touched my body. Because they didn't pray for me even when I didn't believe in myself. And maybe it's unfair. Maybe it's selfish. But I still dream of you. I still hope that somewhere, deep in your spirit, you haven't completely locked the door. That maybe, just maybe, a part of you still believes in the version of me that is now growing in the garden you planted. Because that's what you did, baby. You planted seeds in me. And now I water them with every tear I shed over the memory of what we had. You left me with purpose, with clarity, with a blueprint of what real love looks like. And even if I never get to hold your hand again, I will carry that legacy until my last breath. Sometimes I wonder what I would say if I had one last chance to look you in the eyes. Maybe I wouldn't say much. Maybe I just let my tears speak. Maybe I just let you see the man I've become in your absence. A man who now understands that love is not about finding someone to fill your emptiness, but someone who honors your wholeness. And you were whole, complete, glorious, and I treated you like a half-finished thought. But now I know better. Now I honor you, even from a distance. Now I bow in reverence to the woman who once saw the best in me when I only saw my worst. I say some people are lessons, but you weren't a lesson. You were the revelation, the unveiling, the divine wake-up call. You were the proof that God still places angels on earth and gives them human hearts just to see how others will treat them. And baby, I treated my angel like she was just another person. And that will haunt me for the rest of my life. But maybe, just maybe, that haunting is holy. Maybe it's sacred. Maybe it's the fire that'll keep me from ever mistaking real love again. You always said if love doesn't change you, it wasn't real. And baby, you changed me. Completely, irreversibly, eternally. And for that, I will always be grateful. Baby, I never told you this, but every time you stood in front of me, chin lifted, eyes piercing straight through my mask, I felt exposed in a way I had never known before. It wasn't just attraction, it wasn't even admiration. It was fear mixed with fascination. Because how could someone like you exist? How could someone love so powerfully, speak so truthfully, move with so much grace, and still choose someone as confused and conflicted as me? It messed with my head. You messed with my pride. You messed with every belief I had about love, about women, about myself. And I didn't have the strength to admit that. So instead of rising to your level, I fell into my ego's arm. I let my wounds win. There's this thing no one tells you, baby, that when a man meets a woman who reflects back to him everything he's been too afraid to become, it doesn't always inspire him right away. Sometimes it crushes him. Sometimes it overwhelms him. Sometimes he runs. And that's what I did. Not because you weren't enough, but because you were too much. Too much light. Too much truth. Too much power. You were everything I prayed for, but not what I was prepared for. I thought I was ready for a woman like you, but baby, I wasn't even ready to face myself. You see, you walked in with open hands, offering peace, offering clarity, offering healing, but I took it like a threat. I mistook your love for exposure, because you saw me. You saw me in a world where I had to always perform, always protect, always pretend. I met you, and you stripped that away with nothing but a look. No one had ever loved me to the depth that you did, not even close. No one had ever challenged me to be better without shaming me. No one had ever made me want to heal, not just survive, not just distract, but actually heal. But the problem was, I didn't believe I deserved it. Baby, I'm going to say something now that I've never said to anyone. I was afraid of your power. Not the kind of power that controls or manipulates, no. Your power was quiet, gentle, steady, but it was undeniable. You were rooted, anchored, so sure of who you were, and that terrified me. Because I was still pretending. I was still trying to find my worth in applause and approval, in attention. But you didn't need any of that. You didn't need to be seen. You were the light, and my darkness, it didn't know how to handle that. My shadow felt small next to your shine, and instead of learning from you, I tried to dim you. I criticized you. I distanced myself. I lied to myself and said you were too much. But the truth is, I was never enough for you back then. I remember the last time we talked. You didn't yell. You didn't plead. You just looked at me with this calm sorrow in your eyes, like you knew I wasn't coming back. And even though you didn't say it out loud, I heard your heart whisper, I can't keep breaking myself to hold space for someone who keeps running. And baby, I'll never forget that silence. It was louder than any goodbye. It was the sound of a woman choosing herself. And you needed to. You deserved to. Because God didn't create you to be someone's emotional rehab. He created you to be a lighthouse. And I, blinded by my own fog, drifted away from the one place that felt like home. Now, I watch you from afar. You're glowing in a way I couldn't appreciate when I had you. You're respected now, admired, held with the reverence I failed to offer. And while I'm proud of you, baby, I also ache, because I know that the version of me who could have matched your energy was locked behind doors I didn't dare to open until it was too late. But I'm opening them now, one by one, slowly, painfully. I'm unlearning every lie that made me believe your strength was a threat. I'm unraveling every fear that made me think love had to be earned through struggle. You taught me that real love feels like peace, not punishment. And God, do I crave that peace now. There's a scene I play over in my mind. Me walking up to you one day, years from now, after all the dust has settled, and just whispering, thank you. Not for staying, but for leaving when you needed to, for showing me what I couldn't see, for loving me so deeply that the absence of your presence forced me to become someone I could finally respect. Baby, your love didn't destroy me, it awakened me, and that's something I'll never stop being grateful for. If only I had told you sooner. If only I had let you know that your power wasn't the reason I walked away. It was the reason I fell in love in the first place. But back then, I didn't know that love and power could coexist. I thought I had to choose. I thought either you shine or I do. I didn't realize we could shine together. That your glow didn't take away from mine. It invited it out of hiding, but baby, I'm learning now. And I swear to you that I'm never going to forget what you showed me. Not in this life, not in any, baby. I don't think I ever told you how many nights I sat in silence, staring at the ceiling, replaying every word you ever said to me. Every warning wrapped in love, every truth hidden in your silence, every time you turned your back, not in bitterness, but in boundaries. You were the first woman who didn't beg to be chosen. You knew your value. You knew your energy. You didn't compete with anyone. You didn't chase after anyone. You were the standard. And baby, I had no blueprint for how to love a woman who didn't need fixing or saving, only honoring. I came into your life thinking I had something to offer, some protection to give, some lesson to teach. But I quickly realized you were the lesson. You were the fire God sent, not to burn me, but to refine me. But I was too immature to see it that way. So, instead of staying and learning, I fled and labeled you as intimidating. Because baby, truth be told, I had never seen power wrapped in such softness. It disarmed me, and every woman after you. She just made me miss you more. Not because they weren't good. Some of them were sweet. Some of them even tried. But none of them were you. None of them spoke with your spiritual weight. None of them had your discernment. None of them knew how to pray over my wounds instead of manipulate my fears. You didn't just hold my hand. You held my soul. And when you touched me, it felt like God's mercy was being transferred through your skin. How was I supposed to process that? How was I supposed to digest that kind of divine love when I was still used to temporary pleasures and transactional affection? I didn't just lose a woman, baby. I lost a mirror to my best self. And not a mirror that flatters, but one that exposes. You made me confront parts of myself I had spent years hiding from. My pride, my jealousy, my laziness, my addictions. You never judged me for them, but you refused to entertain them. And that's what made you different. You didn't enable my dysfunction. You disrupted it, and I hated you for that in the moment. I resented the fact that I couldn't manipulate you like I had done to others, but now, I see it was the greatest gift anyone had ever given me. You didn't love the version of me that was convenient. You loved the version I was capable of becoming. And baby, that love haunted me. It still does. Do you know how many times I've almost reached out, typed out a message just to erase it again, walked by the places we used to go just to feel close to the energy we once shared? I even prayed once, really prayed, for God to give me a sign. And that same night I had a dream. You were standing on a mountaintop, dressed in white, looking over a valley. I called your name, but you didn't turn around. You just kept looking ahead, and I understood. I understood that I wasn't your mission anymore, that you had outgrown the space I kept you in, that your destiny was no longer tied to my decisions. And I wept, not just because I missed you, but because I finally respected you, truly deeply respected you. And baby, I hope to God that someone is giving you the honor you were always worthy of. There's something else I need to admit. I told people I lost interest, that the spark died, that things just fizzled out. Lies, all of it. I told them what made me look strong. But the truth, I lost control. I lost control over the game I was playing. You weren't following the rules. You weren't chasing. You weren't begging. You were just being fully, unapologetically, divinely. And I had never encountered that before. I thought I had to be the man, the one in charge. But you, baby, you were the storm and the shelter all at once. I didn't lose interest. I lost my grip on the illusion that I was the powerful one. And when you didn't chase after me, when you didn't try to fix what I broke, that's when I realized who really held the power. They say real men don't fear strong women, but I think that's only half true. Real men become strong by choosing to grow in the presence of a powerful woman. And at the time, I wasn't that man. I was still hiding behind my wounds, still blaming my past, still acting like a victim of every story I wrote with my own hands. But you, baby, you were writing in light. You were operating from healing. You were loving from overflow. And I was intimidated by your emotional wealth. So I told myself I didn't need it. I told myself you were just too spiritual, too sensitive, too much. But the truth was, you were too real. And I was too broken to handle it. Let me say this now so there's no confusion. You are unforgettable. Not because of what you wore or how you smiled, but because of how you loved. You loved like you weren't afraid of heartbreak. You loved like heaven was watching. You loved me like I had already become the man I was born to be. And that's what scares me the most, that I may never experience that again. That kind of love isn't something you stumble across twice. It's a divine appointment. And baby, I missed mine. I was late, distracted, unprepared, and now I'm paying the price of watching you walk into your greatness without me. If you're still reading this with any piece of your heart open, I want you to know something. I remember everything. The sound of your laugh, the way you said my name when you were proud of me, the way your eyes softened when I was vulnerable, and yes, even the way you stood your ground when I tried to gaslight you into silence. I remember it all, and I honor it now. Because you weren't difficult. You were discerning. You weren't dramatic. You were divine. You weren't too much. You were sent. And baby, I see that now. Baby, do you know what I realized only after you were gone? That your silence was never empty. It was sacred. It was filled with boundaries I never respected, with wisdom I wasn't ready to receive. And I see now that I mistook your quiet strength as passivity. I thought if you didn't argue back, I had won. But baby, your silence was your sovereignty. It was your crown. It was your way of saying, I don't have time to lower myself into chaos just to prove a point. And now that I sit here in the aftermath of my own immaturity, I feel the weight of every unspoken word you held inside just to keep the peace between us. Every time you walked away instead of fighting, you were protecting my dignity. Something I didn't even know was being shielded by your grace. And baby, I was too blind to honor it then. But I see it now, and it humbles me. There's something deeper I need to admit. The reason I told people I wasn't interested anymore wasn't just to protect my ego. It was to hide the shame. Shame that I was in the presence of a woman so rooted in her calling that she didn't flinch when I withdrew. You didn't beg, baby. You blessed. You didn't chase. You chose yourself. And that's the kind of power that terrifies insecure men. That's the kind of power that makes little boys pretend they're kings when really they're still trying to earn their first sword. I wasn't ready for a queen. I wasn't ready for someone who saw past my games and into my spirit. And instead of rising to meet your standard, I told myself you were too much to handle. I told myself the story that would let me walk away without growing. And I regret that more than I can ever say. You gave me a divine mirror and I turned it into a weapon. You gave me healing and I tried to turn it into a transaction. You gave me depth and I skimmed the surface. And now I sit with the memory of what it felt like to be truly loved by someone who saw through me and still chose to stand beside me. You didn't want my potential, baby. You wanted my participation. You wanted me present. You wanted me honest. And I was too afraid to give you those things because I thought they made me weak. But now I know vulnerability doesn't make a man weak. It makes him worthy. Every time I told myself, she'll come back, I was lying. Because deep down, I knew you weren't the type to return to what disrespected your energy. You are the kind of woman who believes in resurrection, not repetition. And when I walked away, I wasn't just leaving a relationship. I was walking away from the garden God had given me. The kind of garden that grows peace, purpose, and power. And now, every connection I've tried to build since has felt like weeds compared to the divine soil we had. That's not me romanticizing the past. That's me finally telling the truth. A truth I was too proud to admit, too scared to confess, too late to act upon. You used to tell me that love is not about possession. It's about presence. And I didn't get it then. I thought love was proven in control, in titles, in how loud you could claim someone. But now, I understand. Love is in the quiet ways you used to show up, the tea you made when I was stressed, the prayers you whispered when I couldn't sleep, the way you remembered every detail of what made me feel safe, even when I forgot how to love myself. That was your power. You didn't need a spotlight. You were the light. And I, foolishly, kept trying to dim it because I didn't understand how to stand in its brilliance without shrinking. I've seen you now Not in person, but through the eyes of healing. I've seen what you've become. Stronger, softer, even more divine. And baby, let me say it now. You wear your healing like a crown. You carry your growth in your walk. Your smile doesn't beg for approval anymore. It declares arrival. You've stepped into the version of yourself I always feared you'd become. Not because I didn't believe in you, but because I knew once you became her, there'd be no space left for the version of me who walked away. And I was right. You outgrew my absence. You flourished in the void I created, and I admire you for that more than I can say. People ask me sometimes if I ever miss you, and I lie. I say I've moved on. I say I'm happy, but the truth is, I don't just miss you. I miss me when I was with you, because you brought out the best in me. You brought out the man who wanted to be better, the man who believed he could lead with love instead of fear. You believed in that version of me long before I did, and I'll forever be grateful for that. You didn't just love me, you saw me, and that kind of sight, that kind of soul-seeing, it's rare, it's holy, and I let it slip through my fingers because I didn't know how to honor it. But baby, I see you now, not as the girl I met, but as the woman you've become. And she is magnificent, she is glowing, she is untouchable in all the ways that matter. And if life gives me one more chance, just one divine alignment, I promise I won't come back the same. I won't come back with empty hands and confused intentions. I'll come back with prayers, with plans, with peace. I'll come back as the man who finally understands what it means to stand beside a woman who walks with heaven in her footsteps. Baby, I've taken you for granted in ways I'm still grieving. I mistook your strength for softness, your silence for weakness, your boundaries for barriers. But now I understand. Your silence wasn't an absence of words. It was the presence of wisdom. Your strength wasn't loud. It was sacred. You weren't holding back. You were holding sacred space for someone who didn't yet know how to respect it. And baby, I didn't know how to respect it. Not because I didn't care, but because I had never seen a woman like you before. Never experienced love that came from the soul instead of the ego. Never stood before someone so divinely aligned that I had to confront my own misalignment just to stay near. You gave me everything I never asked for but desperately needed, and I didn't know how to hold it. I mishandled it. I mishandled you, and for that I am sorry. Truly, deeply, unconditionally sorry, not because I want you to come back, but because I finally understand what it cost you to love me. And I want you to know that love wasn't wasted. It didn't disappear. It transformed me. I used to think I had to be perfect for someone to love me. But you loved me in my imperfection. You didn't demand a finished product. You saw the blueprint, the foundation, the future. And now, baby, I see it too. I see who I could have been if I had followed your lead. I see the man I'm still becoming, the one who will never again waste what is sacred. I see the kind of partner I aspire to be. Someone who listens more than he speaks, who protects more than he punishes, who leads with humility instead of pride. Someone like you. If I ever have the honor of being in your presence again, not even as a lover, but as a human, I will thank you. I will look you in the eyes and let you know that your love made me better even after it ended, that your grace made me softer, that your truth made me braver, that your boundaries taught me to build my own. You gave me more than memories. You gave me meaning. And now, in every prayer I whisper, in every step I take toward healing, I carry you with me. So, if you're reading this, if your spirit somehow feels the echo of mine tonight, just know this: I respect you. I honor you. I will never again doubt the power you carry. You were never too much. You were the measure, the standard, the reminder that love doesn't beg to be seen. It shines quietly and transforms everything around it. Baby, they didn't lose interest. They just couldn't handle your power. And now I know that they was me. And the truth is, you are the very force I was always praying for, but too afraid to stand beside. You are everything I didn't believe I deserved. You are the woman I will never forget. Not in this life, not in the next. Comment: I finally see who I was always meant to be. If this message touched your soul, click the link in the description to claim your healing journey now. Subscribe to for more divine messages from the masculine heart. May your strength be loved the way it deserves, always.